Welcome to the Perceived Exertion podcast. We're back for season 2, and this week's guest is Alex Larson, a qualified nutritionist and triathlete. Welcome, Alex.
Well, thanks for having me, Johnny. I'm so glad we were finally able to make this work.
I know it's been a while, hasn't it? I think we originally planned to record this in February, and it's for whatever reasons we've had various reasons to postpone. But I'm glad we're on this week. Do you want to start with just explaining your background?
Yeah, sure. So I live here in the woods of Minnesota in the U.S. And I'm a registered dietitian. So in the U.S., to be a registered dietitian, you have to have a degree in nutrition. You have to do a basically a credentialed internship, which is kind of like a medical residency, but for dietitians. So that's about a year-long process to get that kind of on-the-job training, and then you have to pass a national exam. So that is my official professional background in terms of becoming a registered dietitian, and then I do have a master's degree as well in kind of the area of counseling. So I've been a dietitian for almost 12 years now. And it was back in 2014 when I crossed the finish line of Ironman Wisconsin. I had been in triathlon since 2009, and I progressively transitioned to signing up for the full, even though that was never kind of the original plan. But when you're in that sport, you just always want to challenge yourself and go farther, go faster. And so I was like, I think when I crossed the finish line of my first half, I said, F it, I'm going to do the full. And so I signed up that fall. And so when I crossed the finish line of that race, it was just I can specifically remember thinking, holy crap, if I didn't have my nutrition figured out, if I didn't know what I was doing, I don't know how this day would have gone. I don't know if I would have finished. It would have been a suffer fest. I really did just have I wasn't fast by any means, but I just felt good the whole day. It just was a really amazing experience. And so that's where I really felt my calling, that I wanted to help other athletes with their journey to events like Ironmans or ultra distance racing, just any marathons, anything like that, to help them learn how to fuel their body properly, and really be able to celebrate all of the training and work and effort that they put into getting to race day and have a really good race. And then I'm also a mom. I have 2 very little kids. One just turned 5 and the other one is about 2.5. So I'm very busy with them. So I have my full-time job is my business, working with endurance athletes, helping them fuel their bodies. But my other job is just being a mom and trying to fit in my own athletic endeavors as well, which includes a half marathon this spring. I'll do a sprint triathlon in August, which is making my debut back into the sport after 6-year maternity leave from the sport. And then I'll probably do some sort of long trail run in the fall. So this is probably my first year kind of getting back into really being fit again. And it's just it feels really good to have both that balance as a mom and as an athlete.
That's fantastic. And I can say, being someone that's been training for triathlon for quite some time, nutrition and fueling is a really difficult challenge, especially on the kind of long training sessions and the long races. Just in terms of your kind of background and getting into the specialism of nutrition and dietitian, what got you into it? What was the big attraction?
Well, it's not a super interesting story, but basically I grew up with parents that were in the medical field. They both were in nursing. And so it was very normal for our dinner table conversation with the family to be them talking about their day. And it was always talking medical jargon. And so I always just felt compelled to work in healthcare because that's pretty much all I knew, from my parents' careers. And the only issue is that I am absolutely terrible with blood and needles. I have Like if I start bleeding myself, I have to like sit down. I've been known to pass out when I get IVs in. Like I'm just a big baby, according to my parents, when it comes to that type of stuff. So I knew that like nursing or like any type of that work was just not going to be in the stars for me. And so my mom had me shadow a dietitian that she worked with that was on the pediatrics floor. And I spent like just a couple hours with her and I was like, yeah, I could do this. Like, I like food. And that was literally how I decided what my career was going to be. And so for all through college, I thought I was going to be a clinical dietitian working in a hospital. Like that is how I envisioned things. But then once I was looking for my first job, I ended up getting hired at a grocery store, helping customers, that shoppers, with their helping them like make food choices. And what was amazing about that job was that people like sought me out for advice. They actually wanted to hear what I said versus like working in a hospital with sick patients who the last thing they want to talk about is what they're eating because they don't feel good. And so it was such a like amazing experience not working in clinical. And so I was like, well, I'm never going back to a hospital because this is just so great. And then the town that I was living in during that job was a very active community. They have a local triathlon that's fantastic with a top 100 climb in their long distance portion of the triathlon, one of the top 100 climbs in the US. And so I just got hooked into that kind of community of athletes, and that's where it kind of progressed in triathlon. And yeah, it's just interesting how serendipitous our life is in terms of leading us down paths, which being part of triathlon led me to owning my business and working with athletes. And so yeah, I'm so thankful for that decision to move to a city where I didn't know anyone, start my first job as a dietitian, and then get into triathlon.
That's fantastic. I just in terms of kind of my observations of people that kind of get into triathlon, get into running and all sorts of sports, is that the focus is on performance, but performance is often seen as being how fast can I run, how much power can I use on the bike, how long can I hold on to certain watts per kilo. And the nutrition kind of is a secondary item. And I've noticed certainly over the last few years that nutrition has become more a focus and priority of kind of enabling your ability to train hard and to be able to get through your races. Have you seen that over the last few years? And I know from kind of seeing you on social media, you're very busy, and it seems to me that there does seem to be a big focus on nutrition as a kind of discipline.
Yeah. So when I did Ironman 6 years, it's been 8 years ago. God Lord. So it's been 8 years ago I did Ironman, and the products available back there, I mean, we're just starting to kind of expand. Like hydration mixes weren't super popular back then. Like it was more just like electrolyte based beverages, and then your typical gels and energy chews and waffles were becoming much more popular in cycling at that point. So I definitely feel like nutrition has started to take off just in the past few years. Like people are really starting to realize what a difference it can make in their performance. Like it can, especially for the longer distance stuff, it can make or break your race so easily. And I think people are just tired of the sufferfest. And like, if you feel well during your workouts, if you feel well around your everyday nutrition and you can recover better, you just feel better. You're able to function and do it all. You're able to still train and have energy throughout the rest of your day to be a good parent and to like get your work done within your career. Like those are the things that I think people are noticing, is when they start paying attention to how they're eating, they feel better, they sleep better, they have better energy, they have better performance. Like overall, they're able to accomplish their goals much easier.
Yeah, and I think the aspect of, as you say, trying to achieve your objectives in sport the focus has been on kind of, muscular endurance, and without kind of that side of it. And I'm guilty of it myself. I when training, I've either overdone nutrition, taken on too much in terms of fuel, or completely underdone it. And there's getting that balance right to make sure that you're not going to completely fail in a long session is quite difficult, and understanding that. So just in terms of kind of the work that you do on a day-to-day basis, how does that work in terms of a client approaching you? Where do you start from? What is your starting point, and how do you get to a position of knowing exactly how you can help that client?
Yeah, well, it depends on their goals. That's always really important. I will say my coaching program is not a weight loss program. If I have someone coming in and they say, I just want to lose weight, and I'm like, you're probably not for me, because I want that to be a secondary goal. I first and foremost want people to have really great energy throughout the day. I want them to perform better, feel good, be their healthiest version of themselves first and foremost. And if they lose weight through that, it's just a bonus, because I hear all the time from athletes, like, I just want to lose this extra 5 or 10 pounds that I've gained over the pandemic. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But once they start feeling better, they're like, I don't even care about the weight, because I just love how I feel. I feel like myself again. And I'm able to still do all my workouts at this weight. I'm like, yeah, as long as you feel well, it doesn't matter what your weight is, you can still accomplish what you need to and be, for me personally, I was just thinking this morning, I was like, I'm probably at the heaviest I've ever been, but I'm running faster than I ever have before. So like, weight is just a number. It's just one factor of your pace and strength. So I think that's really important for any athlete coming in, is we're on kind of the same page in terms of like realistic goals for them, and making sure that they're going about it in the healthiest way possible. Because that's always going to be my top priority, is their health and well-being. And so when they come in, and we're aligned with their goals and things are fit there, then I want to meet them where they're at. So typically, before we even have our first call with our clients, is we'll have them take a food diary for about a week. We'll have them fill out an assessment form. And so we calculate what we consider their appropriate nutrition needs for them. And then we'll look at what they're currently doing. So over the course of a week, we'll kind of average things out. What are they taking in for nutrition? And then we start looking for what are the biggest gaps that we're seeing that are probably the reason why they're struggling with their long runs, or we might see them slowly gaining weight over, the past year and a half, or those types of things. And then we figure out what's the low-hanging fruit. What is some of the easiest things that they can start changing about their eating pattern that's going to help them have better energy, have better performance, maybe stop the weight gain, and start encouraging their body to start shifting towards a leaner body composition of having that strength, that lean muscle, and just seeing better performance for them in whatever sport that they're doing, whether they're a triathlete or whether they're a runner. That is where we start with that low-hanging fruit. And then we have check-in calls with them every 2 weeks. So we'll have them fill out a form before each call, letting us know what's going well, what are they struggling with, what do they need to still improve on, what do they want to make sure they talk with us. And so we take that check-in call with them, say, is there barriers to reaching the goals that we set for you in the previous call? How can we overcome those? Do we need to just keep those goals to keep working on them, or can we add in something new? And so we try and take those baby steps over time. So it's not just a one appointment and done, it's an ongoing coaching situation, so that by the time they get to the graduation point of the program, they've made huge strides, but they did it in such an easy way that they never felt overwhelmed. And they got to a place where they felt really confident moving forward. They can consistently maintain the changes that they've established.
And is it mindset that predominantly is the biggest kind of enabler, changing the mindset of how you see food,
Yes.
seeing food as almost like a medicine, as opposed to eating in a certain way, or taking on far too many calories.
Yeah, I think there's this fear of food that if they eat more, they're going to gain weight, and sometimes that's a really big mind shift set for them. Is just having them, like, give them permission to eat things. I just had a call with a lady yesterday. She isn't necessarily an endurance athlete. She's more, she does sailing. So she goes, I'm out there for 5-6 hours sailing. She goes, it's not like super strenuous, but it's just that little bit of activity for so long. And I said, look, you mentally, for you need to stay on top of it. I need you to try and get in some sort of snack if you have to carry it on yourself, or like getting in more hydration and electrolytes, because like, and she goes, well, sometimes at 4 a.m. I will have a cup of noodles. And she goes, I feel always guilty because that's not very healthy. And I go, girl, you need that salt, because they're out there in the hot sun all day long. And I said, you need that salt. And she goes, I don't have to feel guilty about it anymore. I'm like, no, you enjoy that cup of noodles. And she was so excited that I just gave her permission to just allow herself to have that without any of that emotional like toll with it as well. So that's like part of my favorite thing with my job, is just helping people like find joy again in their fueling. That's really fun for me, is like shifting that mindset of, I'm going to eat to fuel my performances. I'm not going to train so that I can eat more. Like, that's a big shift for people.
That makes sense. And the great thing is you've lived, through training for triathlon, so you know exactly how it all works, especially on the kind of middle distance
I think
triathlons,
especially for my busy athletes. They just get so excited that they can knock out a 2, 3, 4 hour workout in the morning and still have energy the rest of the day to play with their kids or do yard work, and not feel completely tanked and feel like they need to just lay on the couch all day long because they're just so spent from that workout. Like, that's just my favorite, is that they just feel like a more productive person.
I want to talk to you about social media, and in particular your Instagram account, and the way in which you kind of distill quite complex information down into bite-sized chunks using Instagram. And I have to say, some of them are hilarious. Some of the TikToks that you do are really funny, and more because of the kind of the laughing at yourself in being a triathlete, and some of the kind of mysteries that surround triathlon and training for endurance sports. How did you get into that, first of all? And secondly, have you had interesting comments back on some of your TikToks, or have you found yourself having to argue points with people on TikTok or on Instagram?
Yeah, so I would say probably 2 years ago, I wasn't on TikTok or doing any like short videos of any sort, and I had asked my cousin's daughter, who at the time I think was 17, and I said, can you explain TikTok to me? I was like, I don't really get it. And so she showed it to me, and I was like, okay. And then I had heard from other dietitians that they were reaching their audience really well through TikTok. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to try it. And I think I started in January 2020. And so I just started making these like little educational videos. And then on Instagram, it started to become more of, you would find different sounds and audio bites that you would either lip sync to or dance to. I'm not like, I do a minimal amount of dancing. It's not my favorite thing because I'm an awful dancer. But I just started, I thought they were entertaining, and I thought I could share nutrition information in a fun way, like edutainment, basically, making fun of our sport a little bit and the faux pas that we make with nutrition. And it just kind of sort of became my like signature on my account. And then I had one that went viral, that it had been in my head for a while of going out for a long run, and you're out in the woods and you have a bowel movement coming, and what do you do? And like, you have to go out in the woods and take care of business. And that was like the first time that things got really funny. And I was like, okay, this is what I get. My new thing is just, I'm going to, make poop videos and like lip sync to all these different audios and just make it fun. And I have really enjoyed it. I love the creativity piece of that. And yeah, so that is now my new thing on Instagram, is just making nutrition entertaining, but yet still providing it in small bits in applicable information, like applicable ways for people to take that with them to practice at home and hopefully see some improvements in their performance.
I think it's great. I love the one about the fasted run that you did, and it is, I think, really relevant as well, and it makes people, if you were just to talk on there about nutrition, it probably wouldn't have the same impact. But having the kind of the short distilled information, it does make you look at it, and it does also make you kind of go, oh, actually, that's me, I do that. And I'm guilty of some of the things that you said on
haters every once in a while, like the keto haters like to come at me every once in a while, and sometimes I block them, sometimes they're respectful and they can stay and share their take on it. And that's the thing about nutrition, is that there's no one size fits all. It's not black and white. Like, every athlete can figure out what works best for them. And if keto is that way for them, then great. But I find for a lot of female athletes, especially, keto and intermittent fasting is a terrible option for them because it just messes with your hormones. So that's where, I have to have a little bit of a thick skin in those types of situations. But I've definitely like strapped that on, and I'm willing to, handle any hate like that, and in saying like, hey, this is what the research says. You can do what you want, you do you, but I'm gonna, share evidence-based nutrition advice, and it's going to be generalized. It's not going to be individualized. I want people to go out and figure out what works best for them, but at least I'll give you a starting point.
Yeah, you had one recently, didn't you? That seemed to go on for a while.
Yeah, I had a keto hater is what I called them. And then the one before that, they like shamed me over suggesting people eat pancakes. And I freaking love pancakes so much. So now I call them the pancake haters. Because like, I'm like, how can you hate pancakes? Like, they suggested hemp seeds and chia seeds soaked in almond milk or something like that. That sounds like my ideal breakfast. I'm like, who are these people? Like, that just sounds disgusting. Like, why would you ever choose that over pancakes? Like, oh yeah. So anyways, I'm like, I like to find a balance for athletes to enjoy what they eat, like truly love the food choices that they're making, and still be a normal human being. Like, go out to eat with your family, have birthday cake at your kid's birthday party, but then also meet your needs as an athlete and fuel your body really well and be healthy.
Yeah, and I always have that kind of thought that you do what you want to do. I've been really guilty of kind of imposter syndrome in the past. I would say up to lockdown, I was very much guilty of it, and to the extent that I really cared about what people would think about my training session, because I was never really an athlete at school. I played rugby and I swam, but I was never really kind of that athletic, and so there's kind of an element of really wanting to be kind of really take pride in every single training session, and I kind of lost the reason why you train isn't to satisfy a group of people. And just recently, probably about 3 months ago, maybe a bit less, I deleted Strava for that, just simply because actually I got one person make a comment I've just started my running journey again. I've started from scratch, which means, almost like a couch to 5K kind of approach of starting right from the beginning again. I'd had a period of 3 months off, and someone made a comment, and it was just probably an innocent comment, but I decided that actually I have decided I don't really care about what people think, and that may be counterintuitive because I've deleted Strava, which means that I probably do care, but I now do every training, all of my training, exactly as it's prescribed by my coach, because I'm not worried about other people. And it's interesting that social media has that kind of effect on people, that they care so much about what other people are doing and not what they should be doing themselves. And for someone to write a comment when actually, it's a matter of opinion, it's a matter of professional opinion, I just find it very, very strange that people should want to either embarrass or try to cause some type of anguish. And some of the hate on Twitter, for example, is to a level that is, I think, quite criminal. Some people, some of the threats that people put on social media, I just find it a weird concept of harming other humans, from a mental perspective.
Yeah,
Difficult to take.
I find with a lot of that trolling, it stems into people's own insecurities, is trying to make other people feel inferior so that they themselves don't have to reflect on their own feelings. And I'll go back to your original comment of you felt a little bit of like an imposter because you didn't grow up as an athlete, but it doesn't matter when you start, training, you're considered an athlete, and that you're worthy of fueling your body more and doing that. I mean, we all start somewhere, right? And sometimes we restart multiple times. For me right now, it's restarting after an 8-year hiatus, having kids. It's well, maybe not 8 years, 6 years, 6-year hiatus, after having kids. So now I'm restarting, but that doesn't mean, I wasn't an athlete those 6 years, because I struggled with that too. I would say, hey, I'm a dietitian and a triathlete, and I would be like, am I really a triathlete? I haven't raced in a few years. But I'm like, Alex, you've done 20 races, including an Ironman. You were always going to be a triathlete, but you have to coach yourself through that, instead of constantly putting yourself down.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on your reasons for training and your reason for doing triathlon. I have always said that races don't define me. I like to take part in races. I haven't taken part in a triathlon since lockdown, and I'm still mulling over what I'm going to do this year. I'm not rushing into signing up for races. I'm just training. I'm really enjoying the journey, actually. The journey of kind of rediscovering running, for starters. I got to a point where I actually I didn't like running at all, mainly because I'm not good at it. Love swimming. I could swim every night, but I just to run. And again, it's a mindset thing. And in the same way with nutrition, if you can change your mindset and that's why I think sometimes some of the government intervention on, I don't want to get too political, but some of the government intervention around the world has been focused around kind of trying to reduce the amount of calories that someone eats, and trying to put warning labels on items, because that will stop people from buying the items if they knew how many calories in it. Actually, it's about mindset, and it's all about mindset of kind of getting into a healthier lifestyle, be it going for a walk every day or doing something that gets you back into a fit routine. And so your comments around kind of how you work with your clients on changing mindsets, I think is a really important one, because it does come down fundamentally to how you see yourself and how you do things on a day-to-day basis. So the amount of food you eat is governed by what you feel that food is doing. Once you understand the science of kind of nutrition, you realize just how important, you know, that those macros are especially if you're an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, we get bombarded with diet culture messaging. You know, we see weight loss programs and stuff all over in our advertising and media around the holidays, or like after the holidays. And so we as athletes, you know, and also perceive we have this struggle with like, hey, I can get faster if I just don't weigh as much. And so therefore, like, it all kind of intermixes, and I'd like people to just push diet culture away and be like, no, you're training many hours a week. Like, you have to eat differently than the average adult that's not active. You have to first and foremost fuel yourself well before you try and lose weight. Like, there's a lot of things I want people to think about first before they just go straight to like the restricting and dieting, because when they do that, their performance just goes down the crapper, to be perfectly honest. It's just, they're like, oh, I feel terrible, like I'm not able to complete my workouts, and then they're trying to figure out what's wrong. Like, it's because you're not eating enough. Like, I've had some athletes, they're eating 1,000 calories less a day than what they should be based off of their training. And that's crazy to me.
And those people that are, you know, under eating for their training, do they notice a difference in their performance? Have they got a complaint about how it's impacted, or do they not notice?
I would say yes, they notice for sure. I had one guy in particular last year. He's an ultra distance runner. He started with me in mid-March. He had done a very specific workout on a trail. And then about a month later, he was eating quite a bit more by that point with me. He did the same exact workout. It was it was specifically supposed to be an hour long. He said he did the same workout. He had the same heart rate, but he did it about 10-15 minutes faster. And I was just like, holy smokes, like we're on to something here. Like, we're doing something special here. And he was losing weight, and he was eating like 700 calories more a day. So just like, that's really fun for me. It just brings me a lot of joy to be able to help athletes fuel more, eat more, perform better, and just either not gain any weight or lose weight from that. And then they really start believing in the process. Like, that's where I'm like, oh, I got a believer now. Like, they start seeing the difference it makes. They have less headaches after their long workouts. They, you know, don't have less like injuries. Like, it's absolutely fabulous.
That's great. I think that's a really, you know, really important. You know, if you're working in a business where you're helping people, and predominantly, you know, I think that's where I am at as well. I like, you know, the reason why I set up this podcast was because I like to talk to people that have had a fitness journey. You know, I've got, you know, quite a different fitness journey to most, I think, because of the element of I'm later in life, and I decided that all of a sudden I got an interest in kind of triathlon after years and years and years of eating disorders and fad diets, you know, leading to a turning point, which was almost ending up in a very, very bad way in hospital. Yeah, so it's kind of it's changing for you. Yeah, exactly, and that led to me doing a master's for fun in physiology, because I wanted to understand more, because I've got that interest, but also want to share more as well. And it's great to kind of talk to, you know, yourself. You're actually there's not supposed to be a theme, but you're the third nutritionist I've had on the podcast, and each one has a view as to, you know, how best to influence someone's nutrition strategy. But, you know, would I say that any one of those is preferred over others? No, because actually that's the great thing about, you know, the profession that you're in. You have a view, and you know the science to make that work, and not every client is going to have the same attributes to effectively just put together some type of diet sheet that says this is what you need to eat. We're all different, and we've all got different journeys. We've all got different metabolisms, energy systems, physiques, and I can imagine a unique experience for you to be able to take all those building blocks and then try to work out how best to build a program for that person.
Yeah, and that's something I tell clients all the time, and I've done it for quite a few people I've talked with when they pursued working with me. I said, if I'm not your cup of tea, I will find someone else that is. Like, I've got a great network of dietitians here that are athletes themselves, and if how I do things isn't for you, like, I'll find someone else that is for you too, because we all have different styles of ways of doing things, and so you just have to find that works best for you. But I like to spend a lot of time in my program figuring out, like, one of the questions I ask in my assessment form is like, how do you learn best? What do you find is your best way of being coached? Like, just getting in a little insight from them of like, how can we best work with you and how can we best motivate you to make changes is really important for us to know that too, so we can just meet you where you're at, because everyone's different. And I love that about people. Like, I would love to just embrace like diversity in athletics. And so I think that's what makes life interesting. And so if I can figure out what makes people tick and then help them be successful, then I'm just a better coach for that.
And there's a great network as well, I think, in triathlon. I think, there's when you turn up to race day. I mean, I remember when I first started in triathlon, my first triathlon I did, you do the normal thing, go out and buy all the kit. And you turn up on race day and you think, yeah, I can do this. I'm not entirely confident I know everything, but there's always someone on hand to I had 2 or 3 people come up to me and explain what to do during transition, how best to do that, and learning that along the way, I think, is part of the excitement of of actually training for triathlon. You've got 3 disciplines to be mediocre at, as opposed to
if you train in one area really, really well, the other areas don't come together quite as well. I have another dietitian on my team now that takes clients, and she's a very experienced triathlete herself. And so we were talking about that just this week about I was like, I told her, I said, my goal for my triathlon here in August is to nail the run, because in all of my triathlon career, I'm a decent swimmer. I'm usually like, I'm not one of the first that comes out of the water, but I'm usually like one of the first of the main pack. And then I'm a pretty good biker. I usually can hold my own. I'll have a few people that pass me, but I can, maintain a pretty good, staying in my place there. And then on the run, I get out on the run, and then everyone just freaking passes me. And I just get so pissed off. And I'm like, God, this sucks. Like, I just wish I could just run really well. And so that is my goal for August. And so I've been working a lot on my running so that I can get off that bike and feel strong. And I mean, it's just like a 5K. It's not very long. Like, that is my goal for that race, is to hold my own on the run. And that's what my dietitian was saying. Hannah is her name. And she goes, yeah, it's hard when you like really work on your running, then your other areas, don't go as well. Or if you just focus on biking, then your running and swimming fall off. Like, that's the struggle of triathlon, is it's really hard to be good at all 3.
But it also gives you that diversity of kind of being able to train different things. I get really excited when I see my training plan for the next week, because there's always something that's slightly new. This week, for example, on my running, my rediscovery of running, there was because I hadn't run before the last 6 weeks for quite some time. There was quite a tricky longer distance to run. It wasn't that long ago I was running 10Ks 3 times a week, but and I knew I could do it deep down. I knew it would be okay, but it was quite exciting. And I think that's a really important part of this is that, and one of my key, one of the key things for me is that training has to be fun. If it's not fun, then why are you doing it? So, I try to think about, the positives after every training, rather than the negatives. And I do reflect upon the negative side, but it's the positives. And as you say, rediscovering running and getting into being a stronger runner, you've got these objectives in your head around what makes me a stronger runner. For me, it's about time, pace and things like that. But it's also about just being able to run at a certain speed without feeling like you're going to die. And so, so I'm really excited about kind of being able to rediscover the running. I certainly, the 2 runs I've done this week, I think it's probably the first time I've got up and thought, actually, I'm really looking forward to doing the run. And I don't think I've ever been like that.
Too. And
ever.
It's exciting. Like I used to hate running, but now I'm like, I can actually like it now because I'm actually feeling strong and it's not a suffer fest every single time. And nutrition can play a role in that too. Like one of the things I've been trialing this spring has been, I'll take some energy chews like 20-30 minutes before I start any run. Even if it's a shorty run or a long run, I will take some fuel right beforehand. And it really helps me finish that last mile nice and strong. Like I'm like, I feel great. Like I feel like I can almost go farther if I wanted to. And there's something really special about having that kind of mindset, because if you have really good workouts where you feel good back to back to back, you're going to want to continue training and keep doing it, versus if you're suffering, if you're not feeling things properly, you're feeling like crap, you're sore all the time, like you're not going to want to continue to train and be consistent with that. So like it all is interconnected. Like if you feel well, you're going to train well, you're going to sleep better, you're going to recover faster, you're going to have a better like mental focus with your training and like high motivation levels to like keep going.
Yes, it's really interesting. I never take any, unless I'm going out to do a very long run. I don't usually take anything, and usually it's a fasted, because I've woken up first thing in the morning, 6 a.m. and go straight out. Yeah, I'm one of those people that you talked about on your TikTok, but it's only because I actually get really upset stomach afterwards if I eat before a run. So, and to get up early enough to eat and then do that run is quite difficult. But yeah, I will take that on board and look to introduce that.
What you could do is like having a small little dose of like an energy drink, like not energy drink, but like a hydration mix that's got some carbs in it. Start with a small amount and like work your way slowly.
Work your way up. Yeah.
And then even like, or just a couple energy chews or like a half a waffle, like a half an hour before. Because by the time you start that run, it's going to be mostly digested anyways. So, but that energy, that fresh energy like that will really help.
That's really useful. Yeah, that's really useful. Can I ask you about protein? So I think protein for me feels like it's one of those areas that is often misunderstood, especially in terms of recovery and building strength. And there are messages certainly linked to the sale of certain protein-based drinks and food. How important is protein in recovery and also building muscle, especially how soon after an exercise would you need to take it? Because you see people in the gym almost as soon as they come out of the gym, they're making up their cocktail in the changing room to try and get that protein in as soon as possible. How true is that, and how important is protein for recovery and strength building?
Yeah, so carbs are like king when it comes to performance, but protein is king when it comes to recovery. You'll also want to include carbs in that recovery as well, so they both play a pretty important role. But I would say that is probably one of the top things that I work with my athletes on in terms of everyday nutrition, is getting enough protein throughout the day, because as endurance athletes, we actually have higher needs of protein because our muscles are always regenerating new protein. They're removing old protein, trying to put new protein in there to keep our muscles like rebuilding, repairing, and regenerating. So it's really important post-workout. If you can get some protein in within an hour after your workout, because our body is just really primed. Our muscles are ready to start repairing, rebuilding in that time frame. If you go post like an hour after your workout, your body will still take in that protein. It might just be not as efficient at it. And then you want to make sure that you're continuing to consume good quality protein throughout the rest of the day, because it's not like that recovery process is just in that hour, it's throughout the rest of the day. So, and even overnight. So sometimes if athletes have had a really big training block, I'll be like, I want you to take a good amount of protein before you, like bedtime, like an hour before you go to bed. I want you to take some good protein in, because your body will start using that protein then overnight and just continue that recovery process versus just being in a fasted state. So I would say yes to protein post-workout, but also carbs. Carbs are really important because that's our body's favorite form of energy. So in order to feed those muscles, refuel them, it prefers to use carbs for that, reload those glycogen stores. If you don't get enough carbs in, you're going to just start using that protein as energy and not actually for like muscle recovery. So making sure you get plenty of carbs. Another thing that's magical about carbs is it helps give that insulin response, and insulin actually helps with that amino acid uptake in the muscles. So it's really important. So those guys you see at the gym taking their protein cocktail, whatever it is, post-workout, I always worry that there's not enough carbs in it, because they're not going to be able to utilize all that protein then for what they wanted to. It's going to get used as energy. So having a banana with your protein shake or a bagel or something to get some carbs in with that is always a best practice.
That's really useful. I didn't know that about the carbs, and I've read lots of it. So that's I think that's a really, really good top tip for people, especially if you're on the go all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on a training plan where you don't have a break or you don't have a rest day,
yeah,
getting that.
I will say, if you're going to do a 2-a-day, that hour window post workout is even more important, like, because you want to get as recovered as possible for that second workout. So if you're doing like a morning workout and an evening workout, that I just had an athlete this spring who's a triathlete. I said, and he does a lot of 2-a-days. I said, I want you to make that protein shake and some fruit or a bagel or whatever it is. I want you to make that your top priority over the next few weeks. So you can just get into the habit of doing that, because he was timing it out where he would get back from his pool swim with like 5 minutes to spare before he needed to be at his desk. And I said, okay, I need you to either cut your workout just an extra 5 minutes short, or like have your wife prep something for you while you're coming home, or prep something the night before, but I need you to make that a priority so that you have a really good workout in the evening. And he did notice a significant difference just in his watts on his power meter on his bike. He's like, I'm pulling numbers that I don't usually see till later in the summer. And it was February, March for him that he was saying things like that.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I in my training plan, I have 2 a day on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I have to say I haven't been. I've been quite trying to just get the protein from food. But actually, I've now switched over the last 6 weeks. I've switched to powdered drinks of kind of nutritional drinks. So not just that protein, but also the other recovery kind of salts and things like that you've lost in the sweat. So and I have noticed a difference. Being able to do the bike after the run in the morning, I've noticed that I'm not feeling as tired Certainly from a muscular perspective, it's working. So that's a really good tip. Thank you. I just want to touch upon common mistakes and misleading advice you hear. So just as kind of a roundup, what's your top mistake that you find either through social media or through clients?
Hands down is underfueling. I see so many athletes not eating enough. I've got a gal right now. She's actually a triathlon coach, and she does Ironman Wisconsin every year. And she started with me, and I looked at, what she's currently eating, which is probably around 2,100 calories on average a day. She trains like 15, 16 hours a week. I mean, huge amounts of training. And I calculated her needs anywhere from like 2,800 to 3,000 calories a day. And I said, okay, we're going to start working your way up to that. And she was very afraid because she was really wanting to lose some weight. And that fear of weight gain was very much an issue for her. But I said, I just need you to trust me. And so over the past couple months, we've been working her way up to there. And I think she's at 2,800 calories now, and she hasn't gained a pound. She's still, and she goes, I will say weight. Well, I haven't lost weight. She goes, usually my weight really fluctuates throughout the week. She goes, it goes up and down all over the place. She goes, it is staying really steady week after week. She goes, I don't see those fluctuations anymore. And she's just able to complete her workouts really well. So underfueling, even with people that are coaching athletes, is one I see just so common. And it's usually out of fear of weight gain, unfortunately.
There is still a lot of perception around kind of body composition as well, isn't there? Around the look of a triathlete being different to the look of other athletes, and that I think does influence.
Of a triathlete body, there is no. I mean,
no.
That's the thing. And I think first place is that when I'm out there on the course, there's every shape and size out there, and we're all out there doing it. And we should celebrate that instead of judging people for not maybe looking the part. That just makes me sad. I have another a dietitian friend who works with endurance athletes, and she had a particular athlete that was at the St. George World Championships recently. And the woman is a heavier build. And while she was walking through transition, she was approached by 4 different volunteers telling her that spectators weren't allowed in the transition area. And she had to explain to them, I'm racing, I'm an athlete. And that just makes me so angry that she had to go through that. It's really hard.
I think social media does play a part though in kind of people's perception of how they should look and what they should look like.
The pros and following, I have to eat exactly how the pros do. And no, you don't have to do that. The pros eat how they eat, and that's okay.
Exactly. Yeah, so imposter syndrome again rearing its head. I think there's a lot of that. And I think everyone should embrace the fact that people are trying. They're all at different stages of their journey. They've all got different reasons for doing it. You're right. At triathlons, you do see different types of people, different ages, different builds, all having what they want to get from that race. And I think it is really important though to recognise the kind of influence on fun and having fun and doing, do you and I'll do me. That's a really important aspect of it. And the worrying about other people and the perceptions of other people, I think is a difficult one. I think especially in the world of social media, and especially with kids. My kids, I'd like to think that they're not influenced by social media. They certainly don't seem to be, but I'm pretty sure there are some traits that come from social media that kind of influence their eating habits, influence, you know, the fashion, the design that they want to wear. So it's a hard one. It's a really hard one.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Just wanted to end on kind of talking about your nutrition services and how people can contact you. I will put a link in the description to your website. But do you want to just talk about kind of what services you offer and how they can get in contact with you?
Yeah. So on social media, I'm found at Alex Larson Nutrition. And so it's on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I also have a Facebook group that I've got a little over 900, currently 900 people, like athletes in that group. And we've created a really great community of just a safe place for people to ask questions about eating and shifting that mindset of like food is the solution and it's not something that you need to fear. So that's something that people are welcome to join. You just need to make sure you fill out the membership questions, otherwise I won't let you in. I need to make sure you're a real human. And then my website is alexlarsonnutrition.com. So there you can read about my nutrition coaching services on there, and read about myself and Hannah, who I also have on my team. And the first step is always just filling out an application in that there's a link on the website, or there's a link on my Instagram profile bio as well. And filling that out, just letting me know, you know, what you're training for, what you're struggling with, what's your goals. And then we can set up a call to talk more and make sure that we're the right fit. So like I said, I might not be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. But as long as it feels like a good fit, we'd love to work with you.
I think the couple of conversations we've had and the DMs we've exchanged, you know, you clearly are an expert in your field and you do know your stuff. I think I urge anyone to follow you on your Instagram account, because I certainly do look out for your posts. I think they're hilarious and also but really informative, and it's good to see actually, because it's these little snippets that actually do influence people a lot. And and from a business,
I hear from a lot of people, it makes them think. That's what they say. Like, they make me think about what I'm doing and if I should make changes. And I'm like, okay, that's perfect. I want them to be very thought provoking. I want it to help people like give it a try and see how differently they feel. And the most important thing about any of the advice that I provide is like consistency. You can't just try it for 1 or 2 days. You have to be consistent to really, it's not just about results, it's about lasting results. You want to see success long term, like with anything, especially body composition. I want people set up for lifelong success and not just like temporary results.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I will follow your journey and keep in touch. But I'm looking forward to seeing your results in the half marathon that's coming up.
Yes,
especially as someone that struggles with running himself. I just think it's great what you're doing, and kind of I'm pleased that you're enjoying the running.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Yeah, thank you.